Hello, this is Jerry Marshall again. Um, I'd like to talk about a frustration that really um, is a self-imposed one, and it's frustrating to me because I let myself get involved in that way in just my own mind. Uh, in short, I realized something, and that is that we can create, and I can create in my mind, a prison that is absolutely as effective as concrete and steel bars in concertina wire. And the way I kind of discovered that about myself is that our daughter and her husband invited my wife and I to a discussion group that was sponsored by a church, and it was on Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book. And by the way, I recommend his writings. He's got good ideas. And I had read the book before, and I thought, oh well, yeah, I think I would really enjoy a discussion on that thing. So I went to this thing, and from the very get go, it's a bunch of really fine Christian folks, but they all seem to be questioning one thing, and that is it okay for a Christian to be rich? And all through this discussion, that seemed the whole time it seemed to be focused around that. I was like, let's see, what in the world is this about? And there was one lady in there that did a lot of talking, and she referred quite often to the story about the rich young ruler that Jesus has told in one of the Gospels. And that situation was that this rich young ruler came to Jesus and said, what do I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, well, do the commandments, and he listed off of them. And this guy says, I've done all that. And Jesus said, well, you're lacking one thing. Go sell everything you have, give to the poor, and come follow me. And it says that young man went away sorrowful because he had many possessions. And then to his disciples he said, it's harder for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Now this lady was always bringing this thing up and talking about this camel, and she didn't want to be like the camel. So it was kind of like, I don't know whether I really don't want to go there because I'm afraid that I would be like the camel. And there was about halfway through this discussion, there's a chapter in there about rich. I think the entitlement is the rich create money. And I thought, man, is that a good chapter to just spend some time kicking around out? Okay, what are the ways that we can come up with that you do that? I mean, this is great exercise. And we get in there, and the truth is that chapter was totally lost because of that concern. Is it okay to be rich? Is it okay to even have money? And you think, well, what has that got to do with you, Jerry? Well, it had to do with me. I realized that I had, through the Bible, I'd seen warnings about the rich and warnings about covetousness, greed, and all those kinds of things. You don't want to go there. So you can build this prison around yourself that, hey, don't go there. And I realized, hey, there's a bunch of people, a number of them that were there. And then I thought, let's see, I'm looking at myself. And I thought, let's see, if you're going to do some of the rest of the things the Bible talks about, like give to the poor, for instance, then you better have something to do that with. And it talks about being generous, and generous with what? And I thought, this is really dumb, but I built my own prison just like this group of people have. And I just found when I got out of that thing that it was releasing to me. As a matter of fact, very interesting. Toward the end of this thing, the camel kept coming up, and I said, do you know what we ought to do with that camel? I said, is there anybody in here, and this is a church group, so you would expect the right answer. I said, anybody in here that doesn't think they're in the kingdom? And obviously nobody. I said, if that's the case, why do we slaughter this camel? Because it doesn't apply to us. And, I killed that camel that day. And, if there's any of you who you are struggling with just letting yourself loose and freeing yourself to go do some things, I'd love to talk to you about it. I think it's a very freeing thing.